All right, hello everyone. Welcome to this pre-recorded episode of the Gin and Tonic Show, where I'm pre-recording to save Moose. But yeah, we have our special guest on today. Hello there, Stops.
Hi everybody.
Yeah, long time no talk. How's everything going with you?
Yeah, it's quite weird actually because I'm like totally removed now from all the English speaking channels, from all the stuff that I normally used to do, and I'm focusing only on the German side because now there's a lot of well, it's like 20 years ago we didn't have anybody on the English speaking side either, and then this started taking on momentum, and now there's a lot of activity from ex-Muslims, from people who are in the know and who know something about Islam and who are able to stand up and criticize it. And the same situation that we had 20 years ago uh, is what we find in Germany, where there's nobody there who actually knows Islam. There's nobody there who actually promotes secularism, humanism, or skepticism. And this is why it's actually quite important. Now we're slowly getting some people who realize that it's not that difficult. And the same thing as what happened in the English speaking world, we now find in the German speaking world that there's more and more people standing up and doing this. So I'm very happy with that. And I've just started going into TikTok now because it's a much quicker market. And I was amazed that the first time I actually went on there, I had 17,000 viewers in the first time I went there. And this got so busy that they kept me there for 6 hours. So this was amazing what is happening
So can we officially call you a TikToker now?
there. Well, people are trying to rope me in. They're telling me, well, I was doing so great, I should continue. And I should go and do more live streams and do this more often to get a reputation so that people get to know me. So that apparently they have an algorithm that if you are recognized more often, they recommend you more often, and then people start getting recommendations very quickly. And this is how you get more visibility. And this is what people are trying to do. But I'm a little bit hesitant because the level of TikTok is somewhat different. I mean, it's like full of little alidawas. There's not a lot of intellectual capacity there.
Yeah, for sure. On that note, I want to really delve into the topic or ask you a few questions because obviously you've been a pioneer on both the English front and the German front on at least skepticism of religion.
I like to
Uh,
think so. Yes.
yeah, so on the top, one thing that we get on at least my personal social media is somehow gin and tonic got leaked onto there, and the term Islamophobia is thrown around. Would you compare? First of all, what would you say is your definition of Islamophobia, and what would you say is the implications of that in the non-English world as compared to the English world?
It's being used everywhere because I mean, it's a weak excuse. All right, is if you don't have anything else to say, you say, you're an Islamophobe because it's a nonsensical word. Because number one, Islam is just an ideology that is different for everybody because there is no such thing as the one Islam. Second thing is a phobia is just something is an unwarranted fear, and that is normally something that you want to stay away from. Now, why would if having a phobia, which I would normally recoil from, would I go and sort of, I don't know, confront it head on and say, okay, guys, come hit me with your best argument, and I'll take it apart. Why would I do that if this is a phobia? So the whole word, the whole construction of it is totally nonsensical. And like I said, it's just a cop out. It's a weak excuse to have something just to show to throw something around to give somebody, some sort of reply which doesn't make sense.
Would you say that in terms of an more accurate definition, using a term like anti-Muslim bigotry is better?
What? the thing is, it's not against Muslims. It's against the ideology. So I would always call it. Well, it depends what you want to do. Uh, I am somebody who just criticizes Islam and the bad ideas. If you want to be somebody who is unjustly targeting Muslims for something that they are not really responsible for, as far as I'm concerned, anyway, then yes, it is anti-Muslim bigotry. But then, why would anybody do that? Why would you? Okay, if you're coming to the term, yes, but I still don't understand how this works because Muslims, I mean, you can't blame somebody for being indoctrinated. Like you can't blame me for being a skeptic. So it's a little bit silly. So you'd have to come with arguments, and this is why the whole terminology with anti-Muslim bigotry and things like that, they don't really hit the sweet spot there.
Yeah, I'm sure that line was always blurred, especially with Bush doing his whole thing after 9/11, and then Tony
Yeah,
Blair doing the same thing, right?
yeah.
How much would you say the geopolitical side played on it? And would you see that there's a huge shift in the paradigm from the early 2000s to present?
Absolutely. I think the problem is that there's a huge split. There's a huge divide now, where before Islam was seen as a religion that people adhere to, and they have their sort of um, ways and rules, and it doesn't really in any way affect us. It started in 97. That's where everything changed. All right, this is where the Iranian Revolution set in, because you had the White Revolution in Iran, where you had a shift into the modern age, and the Shah Pahlavi, Reza Pahlavi, is somebody who was very much working together with the Americans. And this was also seen as a negative point. And because he was attacked on the religious front, he had a really cruel secret police, the Savak. So he was seen as an enemy of the people. And this is why Islam came around and said, well, we can improve that because we are for the people. And this is why you had this revolution, the Islam revolution in Iran. And then people realized actually it's worse than what we had with the Shah. But what happened is because suddenly you had an Islamic Republic of Iran. Other countries followed suit, and then you had the Islamic Republic of Pakistan. So now we have four Islamic republics. And Islam suddenly came out onto the spotlight as a government style or government form. And then you had the other revolution where the guy, I don't know if you, I think everybody knows by now the name Zindani, that he recruited some people, most of all this French doctor Maurice Bucaille. And what Didat, Ahmed Didat, an apologist from South Africa, what he started and was picked up by Zindani and then executed by him, brought the Quran onto the into the spotlight of like the microscope and the spotlight of just science in general. And this is when things started happening. This is when there was this huge drive where Muslims suddenly had the justification being able to say, well, you see that Islam is totally in line with modern day science, and therefore a lot of people converted to Islam due to the lies that Zindani propagated through Bouquet and Moore and all the other guys. And this is what changed. And now we have even somebody like Alidawa saying, well, we know it's bullshit, so forget about it. But it took 20 years to get from, yeah, everything is scientifically accurate to, no, actually, no, forget it. So this drive, this sort of momentum that happened to get Islam up and running is now the opposite.
Yeah, no, I find it quite similar.
Did you fall off
Almost.
your chair?
Oh no, my I got one of those like headphone earphone things that's on a cable, so it constantly
Okay,
rubs every time I got to move.
sounded great. Sorry, yeah.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask, like, this compares quite well to those MLM or pyramid schemes like Amway or Herbalife
Right?
or
Yeah.
Roll Financial Group that have a very similar kind of oh, you can become a millionaire if you sign up, buy our products, invest all your assets, get into debt by 100K, and then finally after 20 years of disproving the math, which is pretty simple math to be honest, now they're finally having to put more regulations on it. Would you say that the comparison there is a pretty apt comparison?
Well, yes and no. Islam itself is a pyramid scheme because what most people don't realize is you have these things called hasanat points, which means that every time that you pray, you get 10 points, and then 5 times a day makes it 50. If you pray in a mosque, you get 100. If you pray in the Prophet's mosque in Medina or in Mecca, I think you get 2,000 points. If you convert somebody, get somebody to take the Shahada, it's 2,500 points. And then what happens is the points that the guy whom you converted or the girl who you converted does good deeds, you get a share of their points, which is very much like a pyramid scheme. And this is all geared towards you going to paradise, you getting a spot on the top level of paradise as close to God as possible, which, yeah, this is quite funny. It's quite strange. Anyway, but this is the internal pyramid scheme of Islam. Otherwise, yes, it's just all Islam does. It sells you promises. It sells you hope. It tells you, well, one day you're going to have the mansion in the sky, and you're going to have beautiful girls and guys, depending on your sexual preference, fulfilling your every wish and things like that. So what the hell?
Yeah, no, it always got me that you have to refrain from drinking on Earth so you can go upstairs and drink all you want.
It's so weird, isn't it?
It's like some reward program for an alcohol anonymous kind of thing. But then,
But only when you're dead. Once you're dead, everything's okay. Then you can go for it.
oh yeah. Um, on that note, so there's a specific Pew article I found that was quite interesting as well. Let me just get it up. So this specific Pew article covers the favorable views of Muslims on of multiple countries towards Muslims on 2006 to 2011. It doesn't show the more later dates, but in places like the U.S. from 2006 to 2011, there wasn't too much of a change in the positive. But in places like Germany, Spain, Britain, there were, or in Germany and Spain, there were huge differences to a favorable outlook. Do you think that kind of trend followed through
No.
there?
Uh, it's a pity you don't get later articles anymore, or census points, or anything. I don't know if you're aware of the poll that they did. Is it 2020? I can't remember when they found out that what was it? Three-quarters of the people in Iran, for example, don't think that Islam should be a form of government. But they found out that half the Muslims don't pray 5 times a day, where they found out that religion is now not on everybody's mind anymore, where they prefer a secular yeah, is that what you call it? Humanistic,
Yeah,
yeah, kind of
humanistic. Yeah,
approach. And this came as a bit of a shock to the Muslim world. And what is happening now is, I'm sure everybody's seen this, that a quarter of the young Muslims are leaving Islam all the time. The problem is that as the more rational, more educated, and let's say those who are capable of critical thinking are leaving Islam, it leaves behind the fundamentalists. And the fundamentalists are the one who are more dangerous because they are propagating a more strict form of Islam. And this is why, if you see the view of people towards Islam, it's generally highly negative, especially in Europe, especially due to the misogynistic sort of attitude and attitude towards slavery and negative to things like theory of evolution or things like that. Um, the view towards Muslims has also changed because there's a lot of, well, I'll call them riffraff, who are very loud, and of course, the most vocal ones are not necessarily the more educated ones. This is why there's a bit of a negative view of Muslims, of migrants in general, which I personally don't share. I think there's a huge opportunity here to equalize what is happening, where you get the people who are educated that you can get to assimilate in the country and then really provide a meaningful contribution. Whereas what is happening is they're trying to keep them out and they're trying to segregate them and keep them in ghettos, which doesn't help. And this is what is creating, I think, a lot of, well, violence, a lot of hatred, and a lot of mistrust between the groups, between Germans as such, between French, between every. I mean, in the UK, you're opening I don't know how many mosques a day, and you have Sharia courts running a lot of the well, disputes within the Muslim community. So the problem is again that the minority that is incredibly vocal, and it doesn't matter which country you're in Europe, they are getting the most attention. And this is what is happening at the moment. And this attention is, like in general, is highly negative.
Yeah, because one thing that I found very interesting about, um, so I found a similar article to what we were mentioning, what you were mentioning before about the study in Iran. But before we move forward, because you also brought up the point, there seems to be a lot more positive opinion on Christians, but in the same countries that I mentioned before, in Britain, Spain, and France, there seems to be a decline on the perspectives on Christians, as opposed to the same countries having an increase in favorability of Muslims. So that kind of, I don't know if that power dynamic is because of the immigration or if it's because of other factors. But it originally started off with a very high perception of Christians, but then having a decline, whereas Islam is having an increase in favorability.
Well, what is quite funny is that in Germany we've seen a record people leaving the churches. Because in Germany, the way that works, the government actually takes a portion of your income and gives it to the churches. And the only way around it is to actually go and leave the church. So you actually physically have to go to a registrar and declare that you are leaving the church. And then you don't have to pay this money anymore. And now, in the last couple of years, they're going from record to record to record, people leaving the churches. And the driving factor there is the spending and the hypocrisy, all the stuff that is happening with the abuse of children. So there's a lot of things, a lot of points that is now triggering people, and they're leaving the churches, leaving them behind. Now, the same thing. I mean, the thing that in the U.S. that the churches went and they said they stopped abortion and things like that, and this is being followed now in a place like Poland, where the political party, the PiS party, and it's PIS. That's what they're called. So it's not me making derogatory remarks here. It's like, no, it's actually called PiS party, PIS. They are trying to mirror what is happening in the US. So they're also saying, no, we need to stop abortion. We need to do what is right, what is right for God, and therefore we need to do that. And this is giving the people a very negative approach or negative view of the restrictions that the churches are trying to impose on them. And that is why a lot of people are leaving. But in Poland, it's not that easy. There you have, I think, 96% or something is Christian there. So, which in Germany people are leaving, in Poland you can't. So it's very different between the European states.
Yeah, and what I think that it's fair to bring up that Europe is a very diverse landscape.
Yeah,
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 so it's
like Hungary is now going totally right wing. That is amazing. I mean, can you believe that Hungary is actually supporting Russia and saying, okay, maybe the war is justified and blah 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 because we're being too lenient, we're being um, too too tolerant, and we shouldn't have gay rights, we shouldn't have all these things, and they're going like totally like back 80 years. What the AfD in Germany, the right wing party, is trying to do as well, trying to take roll everything back 80 years. We have the family, we have the family head, which is the male, taking care of the family. The woman stays in the kitchen, looks after the children, and the family consists of one husband, one wife, and then three children. And this is what they're trying to propagate. I mean, it's like, 80 years ago. It's quite crazy.
yeah. Considering their background just 80 years ago, I kind of think that that's a bad move on their part.
Yeah. And the worst thing is they don't know what they're doing. Like with the energy crisis, with the with climate change and things like that, they totally ignore it. Climate change does not exist for them. They're saying no, no, no. We need to burn coal. We need to keep all the nuclear reactors running because we want cheap electricity. They don't understand that cheap electricity is not our problem. It's the planet that is our problem, and they don't. I don't know what they're doing. They're really they're not considering this at all. They're only looking at populistic. We want to help the human beings in the country, and we're going to reduce the taxes. We're going to do that. We're going to give you cheap electricity, cheap oil, cheap petrol. You can drive your cars and blah blah blah. They're not looking at the future at all. So it's crazy.
There's a lot of, and even if you just want something for cheap, it's going to cause a lot of economical issues, right? Because I'm assuming in
Yeah,
order to
but they're
get it,
saying
like,
taking let's follow the church because the church has all the answers. Jesus has all the answers. Let's trust Jesus.
yeah, it's how can we? I'm pretty sure Jesus has like plans on renewable energy inside, hidden under his Mary, where she's sitting.
But really, this is what they want to do. They want to close the borders, no more migrants. Okay, I have a very hands-off or standoffish approach towards migrants because what people are saying is we have to go to the Mediterranean and we have to pick up everybody and take them to Germany. And I'm saying, well, hang on, doesn't that make you an accomplice to the people who are illegally um, taking the people into the Mediterranean, knowing full well that they are inadequately, well, I don't know, geared for this kind of an environment. And what they are doing is they're taking a lot of money from these people, taking them to the coast, putting them into little dinghies, pushing them out to sea, and then hoping that some European country is going to pick them up and take them. And this is how they're making money. Are we not accomplices now to those criminals by picking up the people and bringing more and more Africans, Muslim Africans, into Europe, is that really going to help the Muslim Africans in the country? No. So I think we should rather be looking at trying to bring, um, medical aid and don't teach a poor man, don't give him a fish, teach him how to fish. And this is the kind of approach that I'm taking here. And people are criticizing me that I'm being brutal and inhumane
you're being a
by saying that
fascist.
we shouldn't do that. But yeah, so it's a bit strange.
Yeah, and it's almost like if you look at it from an economic standpoint, a lot of, if they have skilled labor this and such, bringing them in and giving them jobs and having an easier onboarding process will probably be beneficial to the country in an economic sense. But if they're randomly coming in, I'm not sure the European countries in the current EU situation have enough money to be pulling out their ass to help every single refugee that comes in, right?
Well, the problem is also that 60% of the people that arrived a couple of years ago are still on Social Security. They're not working, they're not doing anything. They get free accommodation, they get free everything, free medical care, blah, blah, blah. And they're not working at all. They're not even trying to integrate. They're not even trying to learn the language or trying to get a job here. So, you know, how many can you handle? I mean, there's been, I don't know, over 1.5 million now, and most of them are sitting at home doing absolutely nothing. And the problem is that these are the people going into the cities, um, touching up women which they see as improperly dressed, so because they're not wearing the hijab or a niqab or something, and because a girl is wearing a mini dress, they think that they can touch her up, and that's crazy. And this is what is happening, and there's a lot of this, and the, the problem is that I don't quite understand. They are leaving a country that is in shambles and then coming to Europe, and they're trying to create or recreate their country to make it more like the country that they fled from. So I don't know how that works, how their minds work.
And it always pisses me off because I'm actually a reservist for Canadian Armed Forces, and I know a lot of people with the bullshit that we did in Afghanistan and such. Not a lot of the translators were able to get visas to come into to Europe or to America. Yet all these people are being fed for free when the actual translators and the locals that helped out there when we were doing our bullshit are still stuck there,
Oh,
fighting for their
really?
lives almost every day.
I
Yeah,
thought they took them.
not a lot of them. There's still
Oh,
paperwork.
okay. I wasn't aware of that.
There's paperwork that's still going on, and then this is a hilarious story that John Oliver did on his thing where they found this one translator. He applied for like they slaughtered his family. He applied for some paperwork, and it's taking 6 months from the U.S. side or the U.S. government.
Oh, goodness.
They adopted a donkey. They gave that donkey paperwork. That donkey got its H-1B visa before this University of Kabul professor of English literature and a guy who was translator for the U.S. Army got his.
Wow. No, that's terrible. Yeah, I see. These things shouldn't happen. Just they shouldn't. No.
Yeah, and you were mentioning briefly about the survey in Iran.
Yeah.
I couldn't find the exact one, but I have something very similar from two. So basically, this is a survey done from June 6th to 21st with over 50,000 respondents, and 90% of them lived in Iran. So 78% of them believe in God, but it doesn't specifically mean uh, is Islam. But then another surprising thing: 20% of them don't actually believe in a God, and these numbers are a lot higher than I expected.
Yeah. I don't know if this
And
is the same one, but it came as a shock to the Muslim world.
yeah, and this one is funny because 41% think that all religions should have a right to publicly proselytize, while 41 well, only 4% think that this is exclusively reserved for Muslims.
That's not something they like hearing.
And then 43% of the population agreed on a blanket prohibition on all religions. This is another shocking one. 56% do not want children to receive religious education at school.
Wow. Wow. That's
58%,
that's heavy.
yeah, 58% said that they do not believe in the hijab, and 72% are opposed to compulsory hijab.
Wow. Yeah, this is a big issue. If you look at the protests today, you always hear Muslims saying, "Well, women want to wear this, and it's why can't they wear what they want?" And at the same time, you have women going to jail just because they don't want to wear the stupid piece of cloth. So where is the reality? What is the truth here? Why is it that people, um, mostly men, come out and say, "Well, women want this," and then when you ask women, the majority says no, but for some odd reason, and this is what I will never quite understand, there are women who actually repeat this and say, no, it's giving me the freedom and it's giving me peace of mind that I don't need to worry about my outside, that I'm only going to, be worthy of the person that I am. Don't they understand that it's the opposite that is happening? That they're being, you know, especially in Europe, they stick out like a sore thumb because nobody walks around like this. And yet they are saying, I don't want to draw attention to myself. But that's exactly what you are doing. And then you get this hybrid thing where they wear a headscarf and hide the neck and the hair, which they're supposed to, but they wear like these really tight leggings and sneakers and stuff like this. So it's a total joke what is happening today. I don't know how this is going to develop in 10, 20 years.
Yeah, this is a topic where it really does confuse me because I always get like giving the metaphor of a uniform at the Apple store. If you're wearing an Apple store uniform, because Apple has a bylaw saying if you're working here, you got to wear an Apple T-shirt. You're like, oh, this allows me to live the best potential as a tech geek that I can. And I'm like, the first thing I assume about you is that you're an Apple geek, not that you're a tech genius. It's it's the exact same thing. A uniform is to identify you by the product that you're giving, not by the content of. You can be a nice guy at the Apple store, but I'm judging you as an Apple associate, not as a nice person there.
That's a
Same
good
thing with.
point. Yeah,
Would you say that that would be an applicant comparison that normally we would
it's a
give,
good
or
analogy because it is like that, isn't it? I mean, if you see a person in a police uniform, you automatically sort of assume that they know the law, they know what they're doing. Um, the person underneath it or behind that uniform is secondary at that moment. And it's exactly what you're saying. It could be a nice person, it could be a total asshole. But at least they should be professional. And a lot of times you find that they are not. And the same thing happens to um, a hijab bearing or I don't know what you want to call it, a concealed woman where you think that she's deeply into Islam, and then you find no, actually she's not. She's just doing it as a favor to her parents or something like that. And I come across this a lot. So it's quite funny that this kind of this clothing determines what your first impression is of somebody. Yeah, true.
yeah? And on that point, I have an actual anecdote as well, where I was interviewed at a job by a hijabi woman, and knowing that it's probably informal to like give them a handshake or something, I just bow briefly and I take a seat. And she got mad at me for not giving her a handshake, and I'm like, you realize you're not allowed to do that. I'm
That's
literally
quite
stopping you from
weird.
going no.
That is so weird. Now you're discriminating because you're trying to be polite. That's a good
Uh,
one.
yeah, I was like, listen, lady, you better give me this job because I just stopped you from eternal hellfire. But,
That's good.
but yeah,
Oh
like
boy.
on this point, would you say that liberal Muslims, especially like her, are doing Islam an injustice, or are they a progressive kind of thing?
No, I think it's good. It shows that people can go beyond all the restrictions that they have in their religion and in their ideology. And I think it's good that it makes it difficult because you never know where you are. The next time you're going to go and offer a hand and that she's going to be insulted like crazy or offended. I feel so offended. But I think it's good that people are capable of doing that. It's progress in itself because people are able to distinguish between a friendly gesture and a sexual assault or whatever it's supposed to mean. And handshake in Islam, I don't really know.
Yeah, and for the centralized ruling on how the religion should move forward, I know for Catholicism we have the standard Pope. In Hinduism, we have the TTD. For Islam, do you think should there be a standardized organization, and who should be the head of it? Either Saudi Arabia or Muhammad Hijab. Would you say that if not these two, who should be the what should be the head of the Islamic
I don't
organized
think that you need a
religion?
head. I don't think you should have a head. I think it's a belief system. Okay, so I don't think Islam should play a role in politics, in government, in laws, in anything like that. It should be like a horoscope. There's no leader in horoscopes. It's just something that you believe or not. You just do your calculations and that's it. And I think the same should be true for Islam, that you just have Islam as a set of ideas, and I don't think there should be a head. I think it should just be you and the belief, and you and God, and that's it. Why should there be somebody in between or a leader or something? It shouldn't be political at all. So, yeah, that's me.
Yeah, that would be a great philosophy, but in the practicality of it, like if you they want Sharia law being implemented as a government kind of thing, we kind of I much rather have it as an intermediate one representative of guy implementing Sharia than every single person. Like if you get five Muslims in a room, you're gonna get six different opinions. Instead of
Exactly.
having that,
Yeah.
and instead of having that conflict, if we can pinpoint one person who we can say is the fit for Catholicism, it's the Pope. For the Protestant Church, it's King Charles, and then for Islam, Muhammad Hijab or whoever the hell it is. It's if we can have that, wouldn't that give some kind of security to all those people who think who want to
Yeah.
implement Sharia and be
The
less
problem
confusing?
is you can't do this in Islam because, like, there is no such thing as the Islam and the Muslim, unfortunately, because you have so many groupings and you have so much animosity between the different groups, where the one group is calling the other non-Muslims or non-believers and kill each other. And this is the problem. So you will never be able to get one caliph or one leader in Islam because another group will automatically hate them and try to um, get rid of them. So I don't think. I mean, look at the four rightly guided caliphs. The four caliphs that came immediately after Muhammad. uh, were they able to run anything? No, they were killed. Well, I think two of them. I can't even remember. Is it three or two? Two or three? I can't remember. I think it's three actually. Who were killed um, while they were caliph. Uh, This is the violent factor that you have in Islam that people simply do not accept it. They want their version. Because remember, I came up with this meme where I said, okay, there's only two Muslims, the one that you're talking to, and Muhammad. Those are the only two Muslims that, or true Muslims, that this guy is going to accept. Everybody else is like a halfway to hell. And this is why you will never get acceptance for one leader or one form of interpretation. Now I'm having this huge discussion where in Germany people still are not aware of the interview with Dr. Yasser Khadi, where he acknowledged that there are holes in the Quran, that they have a red line that they can't cross, and that Muslims are being kept in the dark about all these topics like the protection and everything of the Quran, that there are Quran variants. It's amazing how ignorant people are. How many Muslims I have saying there is only one Quran. And then I say, well, have you never heard of the Wash Quran? No, that doesn't exist. I said, well, go to the Google Play Store and say Wash Quran. Then you have the Wash Quran app, which is gives you a different contents to what you have, which is the Hafs version. So they are like, no, that doesn't exist. I said, well, why don't you go there? And then I've had an eye opener the other night, last Friday actually, no Saturday, where suddenly a guy comes to me and says, "No, that doesn't exist," and blah blah blah. I said, "Well, go check it." He says, "No, come on, yeah, but I'll do it." Bye. And then he buggers off. Believe it or not, an hour later he comes back and he says, "You know what? You were right. There are different Qurans. That doesn't mean that God doesn't exist." I said, "It doesn't mean that God doesn't exist. It just means there's no single Quran today available that you can check which is the correct version. Because memorizing the Quran, you still don't know which is the right version." And he says, "Oh wow." And this is what I like, that some people are capable of thinking. Some people are capable of picking up on what you are saying and then acting on it and going and doing the checks, doing the research and finding out, oh shit. And then they come back and they say, oops, yep.
Would you? So this question I think is a multifaceted or a more thought provoking question that I would have in this case. I'd want to single out Islam as the biggest brainwashing thing, but whether you're a Hindu guy who thinks turmeric is better than hydrogen peroxide or whatever, Or you're a Muslim guy who comes onto the Gin and Tonic show and says because Islam's the one true religion, slavery's okay. How does a modern person with social media, all this knowledge free, like I can access any research article I want on open source, any scientific document open source, when knowledge is so abundant, how does how can a person still be brainwashed to believe such absurd things?
Uh, that's a good question. I don't think there is an answer. I think it's this willful ignorance. It's this indoctrination. It's confirmation bias. There's um, a lot of things going on there. I had a discussion with a Shia, and he said the Quran is 100% correct, and we said, well, hang on. It says everything is created in pairs, but we have examples of things which are not. No, that doesn't exist. And then we said, well, here we have different species, different animals, different things. Not a stone isn't created in pairs, things like this. And one thing that we then said, because there were three of us, because they invited us all in to to have a discussion with the Shias, and we said, well, what about, for example, if you look at quarks, if you're looking at the standard model, if you're looking at um, the standard model of what makes up an atom, and you take the different elements, you take the quarks, the muons, and then anyway, and we said there's no pair of that. And then somebody went and looked it up and said, well, actually there is, because for every quark, for example, there's an anti-quark. Okay, so I said, all right, then let's leave this example. But now what happened is, because they showed us that you can consider a quark to be part of a pair of quarks, of a quark and an antiquark. That means they have now eliminated all other examples that we brought in the last, I don't know, 30 or 40 minutes. And so they stopped the discussion and then went back. We owned the atheists and we showed them that they cannot show us anything wrong in the Quran. Where this was just one element. So this 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 fierce hanging on to the this dogma, this that there is no mistake in the Quran. And paragraph one, there is no mistake. Paragraph two, if there is a mistake, paragraph one takes over. This is this thinking that they have, that there is no way that there can be a mistake, and there's no way that you can get through there. Even and I came with, I mean, there's no way that you in any way can avoid the mistake of the inheritance distribution error. There's no way that you can avoid it. And they simply didn't accept it. They ran away from this and then said, well, you still haven't shown us anything. So how can you reason with these people? So what I'm saying to people, before we start a discussion now, when they come on the show, ask them, are you able, are you willing, are you capable of taking on somebody else's perspective? Are you able to even think about it? Because if not, it doesn't make sense to talk to you. And this is a tough approach, and people don't like it because they say we're arrogant and we don't value free speech. And I said, no, it's not about that. It's about talking to a wall. It's about talking to somebody who has no ability to even process what we are saying. So there's no point in doing that. And then afterwards, we're being accused that we're going for the low-hanging fruit and that we are making people look ridiculous because they are not capable of processing this. And this is why I think we should be more strict about this and say, listen, are you capable? And if not, leave it.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I had some people request to come on Gin and Tonic as well. And one thing I asked them was, what evidence can I show you to make you change your mind about the Quran? And I laid out my evidence that it would take me to stop believing in a certain scientific art paper, or the peer review process essentially is what I explained to him. And if they're not able to give me an answer to that, I just believe like after a certain point, it shouldn't really be my business as what you believe, because if you found Islam in a prison, you were thieving, you were killing people before, and you found Islam and you're no longer stabbing people, you're no longer like stealing stuff, you're no longer drunk driving. I'd much rather you follow Islam than stab people.
Yeah,
But if you're going to come onto a public platform to debate, and no amount of evidence that I give you is going to change your mind, when I clearly
exactly.
laid out how I can change my mind on certain points, there's no point in just talking there.
Did you come across Kenny Boma?
I did. I
Because
actually, yeah.
he's the perfect example. Because he is somebody who was, I mean, he's been arrested, I don't know, countless times. And he's a habitual liar, he's a pathological liar. And the what is keeping him out of jail is Islam. Now, I'm happy that somebody like him is able to be part of the of society, but you cannot in any way talk to him or you cannot reason with him because he can only do one thing, and that is lie. If you're talking about Islam, if you're talking about anything else, I don't know, maybe he's okay. But as soon as you start talking or with science, for example, he's totally gotten absolutely no clue, and but yet he talks about it. And this is amazing how a person like this is kept on the streets as on the straight and solid line by Islam, but you cannot talk to him.
And the thing about people like him is there's the free in the last 3 years, there's little kids graduating from high school just learning off of YouTube. So there's literally no excuse for a lot of these guys to not understand even the basics of middle school and high school mathematics, physics, and science in general. Yet they still make these mistakes. So do you think there's any excuse for that kind of behavior, or
Well, it's the same thing. I mean, is it an excuse? I mean, if you go and you ask a Muslim, like look at Hakikachu, for example, you ask him, do you think that slavery is justified? And he says yes. So what can you do with a person like that? He thinks child abuse is fine. He thinks hating on queers is great. So how can you reason with a person like that? You can't. Is there any way that you can excuse this? No. He's been indoctrinated. He is the product exactly of Islam, the way it was taught in the 7th century or 8th century or whatever. And he's trying to live the the moral values and the societal norms of the 7th century in 21st century UK or USA or wherever. I don't know, even know where he is. So is there an excuse for that? No. This is it's his choice. It's the way that these people think, and it's the way that these people are comfortable within their life. So is there an excuse? No, I don't think so.
and if it was in their own comfort, then I would understand. But when they're publicly advocating for Daniel Hakikachu as an example on modern day debate, publicly advocating for child marriage just a couple of weeks ago, I'm shocked that that's still legal under free speech laws, because you can't yell fire in a you can't insinuate a crime or harm. Yet there's so much science that clearly states that that's a harm. Yet he's still able to say it and not get defamation suits.
Yeah, because God is involved. As soon as if you called yourself a reverend or a pastor, you can do anything you want because there's a God. And come on, that's sacrosanct. You can't be prosecuted for something that you say in the name of God. This is the weird thing that in our society, the 21st century, we still have this. It's so crazy.
Oh yeah, let's not trust the scientist that has 4 PhDs and studied for 50 years, and let's trust the God man in the sky.
Exactly. And it's quite funny. I just had somebody who said, okay, I've had two companies now who moved away, said, listen, we don't need you anymore because we're doing it with AI. So we found a way that we're just dictating it, and we've got somebody who speaks it, who can translate it, who can then do everything that you are doing. And I said, okay, cool, bye. The funny thing is, 2 weeks later, the one came back and they said, look, AI is fine. But when it comes to the human touch, when it comes to actually understanding what it is, it's a different story. Because we had some really funny results with AI, and we were fiddling trying to fix these problems more than we were, talking to you. Because with you, we just said, listen, can you give this a little bit more oomph in this passage? Because this is what we're trying to push. And this is what you provided. So this is exactly the kind of thing where it takes honesty for a company to come back and say, well, there is some sort of a value, added value, in having a human being do this, as opposed to having the cheaper option of having AI do this. And it takes integrity. It takes a certain um, sort of moral standard or level of ethics or something that can enable you to do these things. Because if you're stubborn, if you're indoctrinated and you say, okay, my number one criteria is only money, then that's the way you're going to go. In the long run, you're going to spend more money on doing that than you are, you know, in the long run anyway. So, but what I'm saying is that if you have integrity in yourself, if you are honest and you are willing to actually compare reality to whatever it is that you're thinking, then the outcome would be different. But these people are not doing that. Like Kikachu will never compare reality, like him being abused by somebody, or him being treated as a slave, or him being, um, I don't know, treated the way that people were being treated in the 7th century. That's why he can sit on his high horse and can say, yeah, I'm quite okay with that.
We, on this, like, a lot of it is indoctrination and probably from a very low or young age. But it's somehow almost like a pattern where the converts, especially white converts, almost feel like they have something to prove, and they're a lot
Yeah,
more
that's
harsh
very true.
with their Java. Would you say that that's a fair assessment?
Yes, I see that a lot. Yeah.
So in the Java sphere, we talk about a lot of people that we disagree with. But is there a specific Java person that you have some respect for? Maybe they're honest about their view, or maybe there's something about their arguments that you feel well researched. Is there anyone that you particularly like?
Well, there are a couple of people where I say around, are they really Muslims? Where I forgot his name now. Bloody hell! I just had his name in my head. Um, anyway, so there are people who are not really Muslims in the sense that they live according to what the Quran says, to what the Sunnah says. They are people who see some sort of a value. This is more like the pantheists, the Spinoza's God, where you see there's some sort of a, a missing trigger, and this is where they put God in there. So, and they're saying, okay, the rest could all have evolved on its own, but we need the initial trigger, and there should be a God because there must be some ulterior justice in the universe. And that's about it. And they call themselves Muslims because it's the cultural background. They still see things, or they do things that, or they don't do things that are prohibited in Islam. So, for example, they will avoid alcohol, they will avoid pork, they will do things like that. But they're not, you know, pedantic or dogmatic about it, and that's okay. So, I mean, I had a lot of colleagues who called themselves Muslims who went to the mosque on a Friday, but they will still eat lunch with us during Ramadan, or they will not go and pray. They will, they will just continue work as normal, and that's it. And then on a Friday they will go to the mosque, to keep up the pretenses in the community. So those are the people um, who are making amends. All right, they're not really believing this anymore, but they have to somehow. And so those are the people that I respect because they have to live two lives. and they're not being hypocrites. They're not, they're not proclaiming, yeah, I'm such a pious Muslim. No, they're not. They're just, going through the routines, and that's it. And there's a lot of other people like Hamza Tzortzis, for example, who's a total asshole, who's somebody who lies, who cheats, who um, scams people. Look at the shows that they are pulling, where they are saying, no, 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 don't go and donate money to the children in Somalia. Go and give us the money because you're going to get a much higher reward, because you're only saving a child, but here you're saving Muslims, and that is a much higher value than if you would give money to save a child. So these are people that I call immoral, and these are people that have absolutely that, I have no respect for them, but the people who will just help where they can without paying zakat to a group like IRA to generate more Muslims. Those are the people that get respect from my side. But the people who just do these things for their own benefit, no, thank you, no, thank you.
Yeah, when you mentioned Hamza Schwartz, I was gonna half expecting you to bring up the Ashley Madison issue.
Nah, uh, well, this just it shows that yeah, he's not an honest person, okay?
Yeah,
And I think we went through this, what happened at the time, and I was actually the one who said no, let's not capitalize because it's not, this is not our level. This is not what we do. We don't go into that kind of an area just because he's being immoral, or that he's doing something that he's not supposed to do. Um, so I was the one who said no, let's not do that.
yeah.
I
The
don't
only
know whether
reason,
Hamza would do this. I'm just thinking, if okay, I didn't, and I persuaded the others not to, and I wonder whether Hamza would do this, or whether he he would happily throw somebody under the bus just for the hell of it.
yeah, no, I had I was the Java guys won't give that kind of respect back to us because I'll give an example of Nadir Ahmed. We had him on. I was supposed to debate him, but what happened was the week before I got into a football accident, had a concussion, and I was staring at my white StreamYard laptop screen for a good 45 minutes waiting for him to show up. So I was already in the middle of my migraine as he was trying to gaslight me. And yeah, so like the level of integrity that they have is really a lot of them. It's very low,
Hmm.
and the only way that you can become popular on any front, whether it's YouTube or on the just becoming on the news or coming onto the news, you have to have some sort of dishonesty in you.
Well, I liked what Pine Creek did, where he came and he was just being nice, and they were celebrating him. They said, "You see, this is the kind of guy that we need because they have hope, because he was nice. They have the hope that they can convert him. This is the only reason that Muslims will talk to you. If you give them the sense that you're not interested in being converted, you just want to talk to them, they will just shun you because they're not interested. So what? So this is the attitude that you will see from the Dawa people. So it's dishonest right from the word go.
Yeah, I actually used that opportunity to troll that method that Pine Creek did to troll Hamza from Hamza's Den for a while.
Yeah, exactly.
I went on and I acted like I was taking the Shahada so he can convert me on air, but I kept on mispronouncing it.
Oh shit! I didn't see that.
Yeah, I kept on mispronouncing it for like a good 15 minutes, and it took them like 15 minutes, like, stop the rage and like stop getting a brain aneurysm as they were like trying to convert me.
That must be hilarious. Is that online somewhere?
Oh yeah, it's on Hamza's live stream. I gotta go back and find it because it was a couple of months ago. But
That sounds like fun. I didn't know that you had this evil streak in you.
oh yeah, no, I'm a troll. But
Oh, wow. Okay, good one. I like that.
I also have a special message from just something I saw on my Instagram from a good friend, Sheikh Asamal Hakim. This was a question given to him. So, based off of this, this kind of bullshit questioning coming from a guy who can clearly write in English, is fluent in English, meaning he has some sort of formal education, meaning he probably can like read basic science. What sort of excuse do people have asking questions like this? And then what sort of excuse does the sheikh have giving this kind of answer?
Unbelievable. Ah,
It's basically just for the audience. This man basically asks, "Can I know a name of a hospital where I can go drink camel urine and milk to get curing from cancer?" And the sheikh's like, "Oh no, because the Kufers don't want you to know the knowledge, ultimate knowledge of truth. They're gonna stop you from doing that."
yeah, but all he manages is a strawman. Because all he manages to say is, well, they also refuse cupping. So what does that have to do with drinking urine? Nothing.
This is I find this quite ridiculous because I put this on the same level as the bullshit that Steve Jobs did, where when he had, with the amount of wealth that Steve Jobs had and the particular kind of pancreatic cancer he had, in the time it was actually caught, he had a 96 or 97% success rate against cancer at that moment.
Oh,
And with the guy had $40 billion at the time, so he could have paid for the best doctors in the world and would have lived, just had to take insulin every couple of hours after a meal. But he had to go to some ashram and drink only carrot juice or whatever the hell he was drinking. And by the time they convinced him to actually go to a legitimate doctor, it was too late.
when he died?
So, yeah, when he died, yeah.
Wow.
But when they originally found the cancer, he had a 95% success rate of survival for a normal person,
Jesus.
let alone like someone with $40 billion sitting in their bank account.
Now, do you wonder whether it makes other people think? Like Jehovah's Witnesses? There, there was a guy in, because my wife's sister is still in Jehovah's. My wife left, and the sister stayed, and it's her only social life. That's all she has. And she had somebody who had cancer and couldn't go to hospital because they said, look, we have to do a transfusion. We have to use blood. And he said, no, Jehovah's Witness, you can't use blood. So in the end, they found a doctor who was a Jehovah's Witness, and he then performed the operation, and the guy died. But he went and did this because he said, I can do this. God will guide me, and this we don't have to use blood. So, there's no reason to use blood for this. I will do it without. Well, he failed. Sorry.
Always another like point on that I always bring up is like, I you can follow any religion you want, but if you're a pharmacist who studies and sees bacteria becoming resistant to your medicine that you just researched, you can clearly see the evolution there. But because your God forbids you to believe in that, you close a blind eye to what's going on there. Whether
Exactly.
you're a pharmacist or an engineer
Yeah.
or a doctor, whoever, and you're like, take Jesus, take the wheel. It's I wouldn't want a religious doctor operating on me. Well, it depends on the extent of the religion that he goes to. But if you're a doctor who's seen bacteria becoming resistant to a medicine but still deny evolution, it's I really wouldn't trust you to do a surgery on that topic. Where do you think education has a place in education? Where do you think religion has a place for in education?
Nowhere. I think things like Quran, Bible, or whatever should be taught as literature. You should be informed about them so that you know that these things exist. But I don't think that you should be indoctrinated. I don't think that you should be taught the insides of heaven and hell and gods and demons and things like that.
And is there a particular age that he should be taught, like Shakespeare being taught in high school, or
Well, in our day, in our society, you can't do that because you're being exposed to gods all the time, because everywhere you go, even in Germany, you still have places where they display a human being nailed to a cross, and they think this is great. So of course you have children asking, "Mummy, why is there a man hanging on the wall? Why is he being tortured?" And then you need to answer. So I don't think you can, in today's day and age, avoid talking about gods. But you should treat them the same way as you treat, I don't know, Cinderella. So, there's an age where you believe in Father Christmas and Cinderella and things like that, but there's an age where you grow out of it and you realize that Father Christmas can't, you know, sort of slide down 50 million chimneys at the same time and send presents to children all simultaneously. So that doesn't work. So there's a time when you start becoming rational, and that is the time when you should start telling the people, well, no, the Easter Bunny doesn't exist, and neither does Jesus.
Would it? I would it be beneficial to put it in as a subject like or in an English class or a world history class, basically studying it like Homer and Iliad, for example, because there's no proof that Homer's Iliad actually happened. We have some tribe that had a establishment in a city in Turkey, I believe now, and it's that's where they believe the Minoans or the Mycenaeans had their fight with this tribe and such, and that's what the Iliad was based off of. But should be taught in that kind of manner, being basically being this is all based off of some tribal conflicts and such for that time, and we're just reading it as if it's a piece of literature, or
I honestly don't know. I don't know where I would place it. Um, I really don't know because it's not pure literature and it's not pure history and it's not pure ethics. It's not pure or sciences. It's none of these things. I don't know where it would belong. I have no idea.
yeah, I would probably just say that I if I say what if I said exactly that, I'd probably get attacked for blasphemy, calling it all allegorical or like the same as Homer and Iliad, comparing it to pagan traditions.
Yeah, exactly. When do you learn about paganism? When do you learn about ancient superstitions? I have no idea. Probably social sciences, social something. I think that's where this should be. Because we've got a great guy. I love him to bits, and he's a philosopher, and he teaches ethics in school. And he's such a calm and such a nice guy. And the way that he talks to you is like totally layman. Yes, he's got his PhD, but he's like a really just normal nice guy. You just talk to him, he says, "Yeah, I can understand that, but look, if you look at it like this, what happens?" And then you should shit, he has an instinct for street epistemology that I'm trying now for 10 years to learn, and I simply can't get the hang of it. And here he's doing it without even ever having heard about this. And I think it's so brilliant. But he's teaching ethics. I don't know in what the context is, whether there's actually ethics class or something, or whether it's within a scope of some other topic. I have no idea.
Yeah, it's they're trying to implement something very similar in India as well with the BJP, but the common excuse that I hear is that the reason why they can't fully teach Hinduism in schools is because the communists took over.
Yeah, communism. Oh, this is so cute.
Oh yeah, the exact phrase is because the Congress has been holding onto the government for the past 70 years, the communists were able to infiltrate all the colleges. So now it's going to take BJP a really long time to actually implement Hinduism.
But you also have a deep state there.
Oh yeah.
Oh, goodness.
So basically, the last major question I have, like when it's just two people on here and just having a discussion, time goes really quickly.
Oh, shit, it's an hour already.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so the last big question I have is, obviously you've been doing Islamic content for a very long time, both on the Gin and Tonic show and then on your own personal side. Being a multifaceted question, what do you think is the biggest trend in Islam from when you first started to now? And if you can expand on the actual people who follow the religion, and then the laws and countries that are actually following it, what sort of trends do you see there?
Okay, that is 1 hour alone. What I find, okay, what I find that is positive is that we managed to get people out of this science rut where it was science, 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 like for 20 years. It's that's the only thing it's been, and it took us a hell of a long time to kill that off. But it looks like we managed to do it. That people are no longer propagating it and using it to convert people, which makes it more difficult for them. But I think that's a good thing. So that's a good trend. Um, on the other hand, I see that Islam has is just continuing this trend of causing a lot of what do you call this if you are presenting yourself as the victim continuously without reason, that you are constantly wailing and whining, and that you always want special treatment, and yet at the same time you are trying to infiltrate more and more of the government so that you can go and take over. Now, this is more in the UK. In Germany, I don't see this. In Germany, I see the infiltration in a cultural way because we have a lot of um, Turkish people in the country, and they have been here for like 100 years. So they are not um, so much into changing. They will vote for Erdogan, for example, in Turkey to make it more Islamic. But they're quite comfortable not living in Turkey, and they enjoy the life that they have in Germany, for example. So I think there are different trends in different countries, in different groups, in different, I don't know what, they're not ethnic groups. I don't know what to call them actually. They're just different in the way that they interpret Islam and the way that they live their lives and in the way that they have accommodated Islam and a secular society at the same time. So this is the trend that I'm currently seeing, but there is no trend that I see being the same in the US, in the UK, in France, in Italy, um, and then, for example, in the Middle East. Now, the worst, of course, is the Middle East, where the effect of people leaving is the highest. Where it used to be like 99% Muslim, if it's now only, I don't know, maybe 70%. So, of course, the 30% loss is a lot higher than if you were to experience this in another country. But there's no general trend that I can see. Because on the one hand, Islam is getting stronger because they're making more demands and they're crying more about being the victim. And on the other hand, they're being beaten down and people are saying, no, this is rubbish, this is nonsense, we don't want it. So, is there a general trend? No, none that I can see.
One thing that I think I observed as well is, I don't know if you know about this incident, but last year, there's this Canadian YouTuber. She actually lives very close to me. She's a full niqabi. She wasn't a niqabi. She didn't even practice, but then converted back and started practicing full with the niqab. And she does this YouTube kind of vlog kind of thing. Her name's Ninja Mommy. She got in some beef with another ex-Muslim group. So I think it's Apostate Aladdin and Infidel Noodle, and they started like doing their whole drama or whatever. But she actually came onto the live stream that those two were doing, and actually apologized publicly for her actions, which I think I'm seeing a lot more of this stuff happen, which I couldn't really find happening
Okay.
5, 6 years ago. So do you think that the self awareness that a lot of Muslims are getting is a positive trend, or
I don't really know. What I noticed is that there was this initiative where they took girls and had them talk in a positive way about Islam. And they made two or three videos and then they disappeared again. But this was a drive to somehow make Islam seem more compatible with young girls in non-Islamic countries. But this was not a trend. This is just something that happened and went away again. I don't know if this is also part of this, what you are now observing, if this is just another trend, if this is just another initiative where they're just trying different ways to get to people. I have no idea. I don't know.
Yeah, they're trying to do that with Hinduism in India, where there's certain movies where they're trying to bring that back. And I was like getting into an argument with people. They're basically being like, the movie's all good, cinematography, this, that, it's all good. But when you actually come to the religious part of the dialogues, that archaeologist who says God's real and then magically everyone believes in it, he didn't prove any scientific miracle. If you translate it to English, what he essentially said was, God is real because he made the infinite universe. If he wasn't real, how would this universe exist? Is the exact line that the archaeologist says to our main protagonist, who then
Oh,
converts to religion immediately in that movie.
on the
And
spot
I'm like,
without anything.
all it took is that one line for a supposed treasure hunter to convert to religion. And I'm like, so that kind of bullshit that they tried pulling, I really don't see how people can actually buy into it.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Final question: did you get your check from Israel yet?
uh, is that still being propagated? Come on.
Oh, yeah, I'm pretty sure now it's from Tony Blair. His retirement pensions probably coming to you and me.
Yeah, it's actually quite funny that a lot of these things just seem to stick. When they don't have anything else, it's always you just want to sin, you don't want to, there's some standard things. Where do you get your morals from? I actually got angry the other day at a Christian who says you have no basis for any kind of good personal human behavior within you. And I flipped. I started shouting at this guy. I said, who the fuck do you think you are? How can you insult me like that? You know, I'm the one who can, like, totally, absolutely condemn any kind of slavery of any form. You can't do that because your God says a certain piece or certain bit or certain flavor of slavery is perfectly okay. And some people in the beginning, they were a bit flabbergasted. They were a bit taken aback by the very aggressive stance that I took. And they said, no, calm down. Because, I can flip, all right?
Yeah,
Sometimes I do. And this was one occasion where I did. And people who didn't know me who were quite surprised. And when I explained it, then they understood because they didn't even realize it. We are so used to being called immoral. We are so used to being called without basis, without substance, without this, by the religious people. We are so used to it that we don't even react to it anymore. And I think we should be more assertive. We should be more adamant that people leave us alone. We don't need their gods. So why do they come to me and constantly try and get me to join their stupid club? I don't want it. So leave me the foof alone, and people can't understand that. And I think we should be more vocal about it. We shouldn't always be, in this appeasement kind of phase and we need to be so quiet and so respectful. No, I will give respect to somebody who earns it, but not some stupid book or some religion. And that's my stance. That's the way that I think.
yeah. I always look at it from a Christian perspective, where it's you're all powerful. God can't even stop his own priests from diddling kids. Like, how's he going to stop me from doing anything?
Mm,
I really can't. If he really does exist, I'll stand right here.
that's it,
Let
exactly.
him do something. Yeah, so thank you so much for coming in, Stops.
Yeah, it's always a pleasure. It's always nice being back and just chatting a bit because it's different. I mean, this kind of a chat is nice because you just sort of, I don't need to work. I don't need to go and check things. I'm just giving you my peace of mind, my my opinion on things, and that's it.
Yeah, and it's one of those. I really like the preparation. As much as I like just the interviewing and such, I think having wanted a bit of these discussions to get in touch, just to have discussions and everything is a plus point, and then also being able to present academically at the same time. I think the gin and tonic needs both of that in the future. So it's one of those reasons why
Yeah,
in the past few episodes, if there were some times when we would just react to videos, sometimes we would just bring in guests, but then I'd also Moose and I would also make our presentations. When I did Rome in India, he did Russian Empire and such. So
yeah,
I
that's
think it's
great.
like a nice trend that we're having for the future.
I think it's good. I think it's a nice approach. It's a factual approach where people need to realize that there's no hatred here. There's um, no animosity. There's no rambling or foaming at the mouth or things like that, which is what I get a lot. I mean, even in TikTok, I was immediately banned because Muslims couldn't handle it. So they had to pull the censorship emergency brake and go and claim that I was spreading hate.
Yeah, it's one of the reasons why I try to be as factual as possible because the next episode that I'm actually planning when Moose comes back is talking about the Golconda Empire and Vijayanagar and the conflict that they had. Golconda being the empire where for the city of Hyderabad, or I don't know if you know the Nawabs of Hyderabad in India, right?
No.
So Usman Ali Khan, or the king of Hyderabad, is actually the richest man to have ever existed
Wow.
after Musa Mansa, the guy from Africa. So their forefathers actually fought the Vijayanagar Empire, which actually was the richest city in the world at its time. So almost six times the wealth of Paris and London at that time.
Whoa.
So they
Wow.
had their
Why have
conflict.
I never heard of this?
There's this channel called Follow Civilization that does a really good episode, a 3 hour episode on the Vijayanagar and conflict between them and the Golconda thing, and it's a really good channel. But it's something that I'm directly linked with because I actually jumped the fence during COVID and illegally took photos inside the Golconda fort
Oh, wow.
because it was so beautiful. Just see that level of architecture and design.
Okay.
But the reason why I'm doing that kind of stuff is where if I actually show accurate historical thing, there's no way you can call me an Islamophobe
Correct.
because you can't deny actual archaeological
Well,
evidence.
they still will. I mean, this is the funny thing. You're still going to be, um, I don't know, attacked in all sorts of weird and wonderful ways because they don't have anything else. Even if you're showing, photos of architecture, they're still going to think that you're an Islamophobe for, I don't know, something. they will, they, they will just make it up.
Yeah, it's hopefully like it'll put more rather than it just being opinion hit pieces. If it's factual, it'll dig in a bit deeper than normal. But when you have people with a lot of cognitive dissonance there, and they're just gonna be like, nope, I'm not gonna look at it. It's
Yeah.
gonna be painful either way. But in any case, any last words, Stops?
No, that's basically it. It's I don't know. It's a never-ending story. I think Islam is still going to be around for a couple of years, and we just need to go and chip away at it, just bring rationality to it. And all that I am trying to do is try and make people think, because like what you said, the guy that I respect, who is just a normal guy who wants a God, who needs a God, and believes there's a God somewhere, that's cool, but don't involve others in it. Don't go and try and tell others that they need to believe what you believe. And that's basically it. So all I'm trying to do is make people think to get to that point.
And that's the common goal at the Gin and Tonic Show. All
Yeah,
right, guys, we'll see you. Actually, Moose comes back on the 15th. So after this, we'll do one more episode pre recorded, and then we'll be back to our regular live shows.
there you go.
Take care.
All the best to you guys. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you for what you are doing. And whenever you need something, just come and ask.
For sure. All right.
Okay. Cheers,